It is 2:13 in the afternoon. Outside, the temperature is over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside one of your chicken houses, 25,000 birds are generating heat, moisture, dust, and carbon dioxide. Then one ventilation fan stops. A red warning appears on your phone. You are not managing a quiet farm anymore. You are managing a biological factory, and the factory is beginning to overheat. This farm does not raise 100,000 chickens per year. It raises 100,000 at a time. Every 7 or 8 weeks, 4 large poultry houses can turn hundreds of tons of feed into more than 500,000 pounds of live chicken. Run 5 successful flocks in a year, and the farm may sell more than $3 million worth of birds. Run 6, and annual revenue can approach $4 million. But revenue is not profit. Before one chicken reaches the buyer, the farm may spend more than $500,000 on buildings, chicks, feed, electricity, labor, sanitation, transport, repairs, and debt. A small decline in feed efficiency can cost more than a new car. A 3% increase in mortality can remove tens of thousands of dollars in revenue, and a few cents of movement in the market price can determine whether the flock produces a 6-figure return or almost nothing. So, what does it cost to own a 100,000 chicken farm? How much money can it actually make? And why can a business with millions of dollars in annual sales still feel only one equipment failure away from disaster? To make the business visible, we will build one simplified financial model. The prices are illustrative. They are not a quote for any specific country, year, or farm. Our example is an independent broiler operation. It raises chickens for meat, buys its own inputs, owns the birds, and sells them at the end of each production cycle. The farm has 4 commercial houses. Each house holds approximately 25,000 birds. The site needs automated feeding lines, drinking systems, heaters, cooling pads, ventilation fans, lighting, environmental sensors, control systems, water storage, feed silos, roads, drainage, alarms, and backup generators. At this scale, automation is not a luxury. One person cannot manually feed and water 100,000 chickens. Redundancy is also not a luxury. If the main electricity supply fails during extreme heat, the generator must start immediately. If the generator does not start, 25,000 birds in one house can quickly become 25,000 dead assets. Assume the land is already owned. Building and equipping the 4-house farm costs $2.4 million. Finance that investment over 15 years at 7%, and the scheduled annual payment is roughly $264,000. If the farm completes 6 flocks, that is approximately $44,000 of debt payment allocated to each flock. Add a reserve for replacing fans, motors, drinkers, controllers, roofing, pumps, generators, and other equipment, and the capital burden reaches about $55,000 per flock. The farm begins every production cycle already carrying a large fixed cost. Now the chicks arrive. 100,000-day-old chicks are placed into the houses. At an illustrative price of $1.05 each, the chick bill is $105,000. The farm has now spent more than $100,000 on animals that weigh only a few dozen grams and have produced no revenue. Then comes feed. Feed is the largest operating expense in most commercial broiler systems. Assume 5% mortality. That means 95,000 birds survive to sale. If each surviving chicken averages 2.8 kilograms, or about 6.2 pounds, the flock produces approximately 266,000 kilograms of live weight. At a feed conversion ratio of 1.65, the surviving birds require roughly 439 metric tons of feed to produce that weight. Some feed is also consumed by birds that die before harvest, so round the total to approximately 445 metric tons. At an illustrative delivered price of $500 per metric ton, feed costs about $223,000. Chicks and feed alone have now consumed approximately $328,000. This is why feed conversion matters. Suppose heat stress, poor litter, disease, weak feed quality, or bad management pushes the feed conversion ratio from 1.65 to 1.75. The difference is only 1/10 of a kilogram of feed for every kilogram of chicken produced. Across 266,000 kilograms of live weight, that means roughly 26,600 additional kilograms of feed. At 50 cents per kilogram, the farm loses about $13,300. The flock still looks normal. The trucks still arrive. The buyer may notice nothing unusual. But $13,000 has quietly passed through the feed lines and disappeared. The next major expense is environmental control. Young chicks need heat. Older birds create too much heat. Fans and cooling systems must remove moisture, ammonia, dust, carbon dioxide, and excess temperature. Assume electricity, heating fuel, water systems, pumps, lighting, alarms, and ventilation cost approximately $24,000 per flock. The exact bill depends on season and climate. A mild production cycle and an extreme summer cycle may have very different economics. Bedding and litter management add another $12,000. Health programs, water treatment, pest control, sanitation, cleaning, and biosecurity add approximately $18,000. Biosecurity may sound like paperwork until disease enters the farm. Workers, visitors, trucks, tools, rodents, insects, wild birds, and water can all carry pathogens. One infected house is a serious problem. A disease moving across 4 houses can threaten the entire production cycle. Labor costs approximately $28,000 per flock. Automation reduces headcount, but it does not eliminate responsibility. Someone must inspect the birds, remove mortalities, monitor water and feed intake, repair equipment, manage litter, respond to alarms, keep records, coordinate deliveries, and remain available at night. If the owner performs much of that work personally, the cash expense may appear lower, but the labor is not free. A business is not truly profitable simply because the owner works without paying himself. Catching and transporting 95,000 finished birds may cost approximately $24,000. Repairs, insurance, permits, accounting, administration, supplies, and unexpected failures add another $18,000. Then add the $55,000 capital burden. The total modeled cost of one flock is approximately $507,000. That is the first major lesson. The farm may need access to more than $500,000 before it receives the sale proceeds. Supplier credit or bank financing can reduce the amount of cash required on day one. But financing does not remove the cost. It simply adds interest and repayment deadlines. Now the flock is ready for sale. The farm placed 100,000 chicks. 5,000 died. The remaining 95,000 birds average 6.2 pounds. The total sale weight is approximately 589,000 pounds. The farm's break-even price is simple. Divide the $507,000 modeled cost by 589,000 pounds. The result is approximately 86 cents per pound. The farm does not begin making money when the chickens leave the buildings. It begins making money only when the selling price rises above roughly 86 cents per pound. At 85 cents, revenue is about $501,000. The farm loses approximately $6,000. At 95 cents, revenue reaches about $560,000. The estimated cash remaining after the modeled expenses is approximately $53,000. At $1.05, revenue reaches about $618,000. The estimated cash remaining is approximately $111,000. At $1.15, revenue rises to about $677,000. The estimated cash remaining reaches approximately $170,000. The buildings did not change. The chickens did not become more efficient. The workers performed the same jobs. A 30-cent movement in selling price changed the result by roughly $177,000. This is why independent poultry farming is not only agriculture. It is commodity trading with living inventory. Mortality creates the next problem. At 5% mortality, the farm sells 95,000 birds. At 8% mortality, only 92,000 birds survive. Those 3,000 missing chickens represent approximately 18,600 pounds of lost sale weight. At $1.05 per pound, that is nearly $20,000 of lost revenue. But even that understates the damage. Some birds may die after consuming weeks of feed, water, electricity, labor, medication, and building space. A chick that dies on the first day is a loss. A full-sized chicken that dies one day before collection is a much more expensive loss. Mortality is not only about how many birds die, it is also about when they die. Then there is downtime. A well-run farm might complete 5 flocks in a normal year. 6 flocks may be possible when placements, growth periods, cleaning, maintenance, and processing schedules align efficiently, using the $1.05 selling price. 5 successful flocks would produce approximately $3.1 million in annual revenue and about $557,000 remaining after the modeled flock expenses. 6 flocks would produce roughly $3.7 million in revenue and approximately $669,000 remaining. But 6 flocks should be treated as a high utilization year, not a guarantee. Lose 1 flock because of disease restrictions, delayed chick placement, buyer oversupply, processor capacity, or major repairs, and a large portion of the annual opportunity disappears. The loan payment does not disappear. Insurance does not disappear. The manager still needs an income. The buildings simply spend more time producing nothing. An empty chicken house is an expensive warehouse filled with air. Independent farming offers the greatest upside because the farmer owns the birds and captures the selling price. It also creates the greatest exposure. The farmer must buy more than $100,000 of chicks and more than $200,000 of feed for every flock. The farm also needs a reliable buyer capable of receiving nearly 600,000 pounds of live chicken on schedule. If that buyer delays, the chickens continue eating. They continue gaining weight. They may exceed processor specifications. Crowding becomes worse. Feed efficiency may decline. Mortality risk rises. Most inventory can wait on a shelf. Chicken inventory breathes, drinks, produces waste, and becomes more expensive every hour. Living inventory has a deadline. This is why many poultry operations use production contracts. Under a contract, a poultry company may supply the chicks, feed, veterinary program, transportation, and processing access. The grower supplies the buildings, equipment, utilities, labor, litter, maintenance, and daily management. The grower is not selling the chicken. The grower is selling a production service. Imagine an illustrative contract payment of 7 cents per pound of live weight. For a 589,000 pound flock, gross grower revenue would be approximately $41,000. That is far below the $618,000 of independent sales. But the contract grower did not purchase $105,000 of chicks or $223,000 of feed. The grower also avoids direct exposure to the market price of chicken. The advantage is lower working capital risk. The weakness is that $41,000 may not be enough to support a newly built $4 million farm after electricity, labor, litter, repairs, insurance, cleaning, and debt are included. A contract model is more likely to work when the buildings cost less, the debt is nearly repaid. The grower receives additional payments. Family labor reduces cash costs. Several farms share overhead, or the contract rate is significantly higher. This is the crucial difference. Contract growing can stabilize revenue. It does not automatically make an expensive new facility profitable. The company may control when chicks arrive, when birds leave, what feed is used, how many birds are placed, and where the flock is processed. The farmer still carries the long-term debt on the buildings. The company can reduce production when demand falls. The bank does not reduce the farmer's payment because a house remains empty. Some contracts also compare growers by feed conversion, mortality, and production efficiency. Better performance may earn a premium. Poorer performance may reduce payment. This rewards management, but the grower may not control every input. Chick quality, feed consistency, disease exposure, weather, and placement timing can all affect the outcome. You are competing in a race, but someone else may choose the vehicle, the fuel, the starting time, and the track conditions. At 100,000 birds, scale does create advantages. 4 houses can share managers, roads, generators, water systems, storage, equipment, and administration. A farm with 10 times more birds does not need 10 times more accountants, 10 times more managers, or 10 times more backup generators. The cost per bird can fall, but scale also concentrates risk. A $1 loss per chicken becomes a $100,000 problem. A small decline in feed efficiency becomes a 5-figure cost. One failed ventilation system can threaten an entire building. One disease event can affect several houses. One lost buyer can strand hundreds of tons of living inventory. Large-scale farming makes small efficiencies valuable. It also makes small mistakes expensive. The farm may earn additional income by selling used litter as fertilizer. It may reduce expenses through bulk feed purchasing, shared machinery, renewable energy, better genetics, or improved ventilation controls. An independent operator may earn more by processing, packaging, and selling chicken directly. But moving closer to the consumer creates another business. The owner now needs slaughter capacity, food safety systems, refrigeration, packaging, storage, trucks, sales staff, retailer relationships, and inventory management. The farmer becomes a processor, logistics company, wholesaler, and food brand. The potential margin increases. So does the complexity. In the end, the economics of a 100,000 chicken farm depend on 5 numbers: selling price, feed conversion, mortality, and capacity utilization. The farm can control some of them. It can influence others. It cannot fully control all of them. So, can a 100,000 chicken farm make money? Yes. In this simplified independent model, one flock sold at $1.05 per pound generates approximately $618,000 in revenue. After the modeled expenses, scheduled debt payments, and equipment reserve, roughly $111,000 remains. 5 successful flocks could leave approximately $557,000 before taxes, extraordinary losses, additional financing costs, and owner-specific expenses. 6 highly efficient flocks could leave more. But this is a favorable operating scenario, not a guaranteed industry average. A weaker market, higher feed cost, poor mortality, delayed placements, or one major equipment failure can remove a large part of the result. That is the strange reality of industrial poultry farming. The revenue is enormous. The margin is measured in cents. 100,000 chickens can produce more than 500,000 pounds of live product every 2 months. They can also consume roughly 445 tons of feed, require constant environmental control, and turn a small management error into a 5-figure loss. The business is not profitable simply because the farm holds 100,000 chickens. It is profitable only when the owner protects a few cents on every pound.